Welcome to Atypical, an offbeat take on news in the addiction recovery field. I'm co-host Mary Crocker-Cook from the San Jose City College Alcohol and Drug Studies program. Be sure and subscribe.
And I'm co-host Gary Montreza, Executive Director of Pathway Society in San Jose.
Our purpose is to both educate and entertain with recent news stories about addiction field. We set our podcast up in sections that include drugs, news, an ethics challenge, and prevention. Now, in fact, let's start off with our first section.
Our first section is, you have a guest today? Is this your parole officer?
As a matter of fact, we do have a guest today.
We have
Angelina's joining us.
Go ahead and clap a little bit.
Okay, you can clap when you want to. There she is.
It's just she.
Okay.
Singular.
I know. Well, you know.
Found her on the street.
Remember we had said,
brought
though,
her in.
not until the end of August is our big public podcast.
That's a big show.
That's the big show. So Angelina's sort of checking us out today to kind of let us have an audience. We appreciate her coming into the closet with us.
The release program's working.
Yeah, the release program is working. Yeah. Okay. Well, today we're going to start off with why would you use that to get high? And today, Gary.
What do you got for me?
Today I have something called cheese.
I love cheese. I love cheese.
Okay. This is a highly addictive drug known as cheese heroin. It's a blend of black tar, Mexican heroin. It's called black tar because of its color. And over-the-counter cold medicine like Tylenol PM.
Oh, gosh.
The drug costs only a couple dollars a hit. Children as young as 9 are hooked on cheese heroin and have been rushed to the emergency room for withdrawal. So,
no kidding me.
And I did check our DEA slang document, which you know I do love.
Yes. What does it
and
say?
Unfortunately, there are no other terms for cheese heroin.
Really?
I mean, there's lots of terms for heroin.
I was going to say cracker, but that's something completely different.
Not yeah, that'd be like my family.
That's me.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, it is a heroin-based recreational drug. It's become called to the attention of the media inside and outside the United States because of a bunch of adolescents in Dallas have been died from it. So as of 2012, the drug use is now among older people who were teenagers around the time they first started using it. So anyway, so now, people that were abusing this as teenagers are now continuing to abuse cheese as adults, Gary. Okay.
The circle of life.
Yes, sir. It's so heartwarming, isn't it?
Yeah, the circle of addiction.
Okay, so cheese is a combination of drugs, heroin with crushed tablets of over-the-counter cold medicine like Tylenol PM, which includes acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, and antihistamine, the 2 active ingredients in Benadryl. And so they took some cheese samples obtained in North Dallas, and they actually did contain between 2 and 8% heroin, in contrast to the 30% found in black tar heroin. They actually snort it instead of shooting it. It does have one other name called Tylenol with smack. But that's so direct. Subtle, isn't it?
Subtle.
Yeah. So due to the high concentration of non-opiate substances relative to the diamorphine content of the drug, it can be more dangerous than pure opiate overdoses. So emergency personnel have to address the overdose effects of each component of the drug, since each component varies widely among the batches. So the acetaminophen content includes severe irreversible damage to the liver. Very high doses of acetaminophen can create actual acute liver failure and death within hours. And people who are affected by this will require dialysis. So the problem is, because of the different types of preparation, the users can't know what the actual combination is between the heroin and the Tylenol.
Isn't that interesting? The Tylenol, the acetaminophen, is that what you said?
Yeah, acetaminophen, yeah.
That's more dangerous to you than the heroin?
Isn't that interesting? In terms of dosages, yeah.
I mean, so they must have a dosage that's way off the chart of what you would normally have if you have a headache.
It must be. I mean, if you're looking at liver damage, yeah.
Gosh, because that's scary.
So anyway, I you know how I love bringing new ways to
it's sunshine.
Horrify you.
It's just sunshine. You have acute addiction and liver failure at the same time.
All at the same time.
And it's why would you use that to get high? And we never, we always ask the question, we never answer it.
I know, it's hard to answer. Why would you do that?
Why?
Yeah.
Do you have
what if you had a headache? Well, you know what I'm thinking.
If you had a headache.
You had a headache along with your cravings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know personally, I'd probably just go with the heroin, but I'm sure people have their reasons.
Yeah, I would just go pure.
Yeah, me too. I don't know why I'm wasting time with acetaminophen, but there you go.
Yeah, well, as
maybe
usual,
it's part of their denial, you know. It's just aspirin when really it's
acetaminophen
cheese.
is not aspirin.
It's cheese.
It's cheese.
Now when we have people ask us if we want cheese
I know.
on our hamburgers.
Where's it from? Where's your cheese from? Dallas. Oh, okay. No.
What's the dosage?
What's the regional flavor of this cheese? Heroin.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
so. There you go.
Because I had this idyllic thing like cheese. Oh yeah, you go to certain places in parts of the world or in this country even and see these regions where they have the cows that
I know.
Eventually,
Gary, I'll probably ruin every possible thing. Everything from lip balm to gummy bears, mothballs.
I know everything. It's like, God, what next?
I know.
Can't. Okay. Anyway, so thank you for another horrifying segment of why would you use that to get high. So let's shift our attention to news in addiction. And if you've been under a rock, then you will not know anything we're talking about. But this is a news flash. The country has been under a rather pernicious, that's a big word.
Wow. That's a book learning you got there.
That's a book learning word. Opioid addiction.
Yep, indeed, epidemic.
Epidemic. So, as you may know, the Washington Post put out a database that had all kinds of really cool stuff. And this happened in July and then into August. And they put out maps. They put out interactive things where you can click to see where were the hottest areas for distribution of opioids. Okay. And the scandalous part, and I don't know if you read this or not, but the scandalous part is this database was released because enough people put in requests and were threatening to sue the government for getting this information, but it was never going to become public.
So they under the Freedom of Information Act?
Yeah, the FOIA, as they call it. Us pros, we call it FOIA.
Those people who watch Rachel Maddow know that it's a FOIA.
Yeah, and if you're Trump, you just say foil as in hat. Okay, so, but we mean FOIA, not foil. That's something different. So that's what you wrap your whatever. What does it come in? What's
Potato?
The cheese come in? The cheese come in.
Cheese?
Yeah. The cheese, the drug, the
honestly, I did not investigate how they deliver it.
Packaging
I'm thinking in a bag.
Okay. Yeah, because I watch some of these programs. Don't ask me how I know, but I always see.
Well, it's true. Sometimes it's foil. You're right.
We'll
have to watch The Wire again and then talk about
foil
it.
Too. Yeah. What's that mean? All right. So anyway, first of all, so kudos that this all happened. One startling result of this epidemic is nearly 100,000 deaths between 2006 and 2012.
Wow.
And there's been, of course, many
more since then. Yeah.
So I can plod through this this article, but it does give a time lapse look from from 06 to 12. And I remember the graphic very well. If you slide it, it'll show little red spots in different areas in 2006, and then within the 6-year period, you'll see just as if blood is just spattered all over the country. And I think it's emblematic of the damage that has done throughout our country. So this, what they call an automated report and consolidated orders system known as ARCOS, that's where this was pulled. It was from the Department of Justice and the DEA. But here's the big takeaways. The database was never publicly released. They released it. Good for them. Kudos for them. And it's horrifying when you look at it. The second takeaway, these companies, and I won't bring up the Sacklers because we had a listener complain.
Whose last name was probably Sackler.
The Sackler said, get the guy off the Sackler thing. It's too much. Just tell him to shut up and read the article. But the Sacklers, among a few others, really flooded the nation with more and more oxycodone, how do you say that? Hydrocodone pain?
Yeah.
Pills.
Hydroconopane.
76 billion. That's a lot of pain in the country, isn't it?
That is a lot of pain. Wow.
And it caused a lot of pain as well. So 2,000 cities have sued, some of these companies, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the third takeaway. A handful of the companies manufactured and distributed most of the opioids. So now you have certain areas where they are distributing. You have these companies that were flooding the area, and it was only done by a few manufacturers.
That's true. There weren't that many.
Yeah. So Cardinal Health, and I know they're going to be in here. McKesson was one of them. Wait, I'm going to turn the page. Is it there? I'm shaking.
It's got to be.
I'm shaking. They have to be there. They're not in there.
Active Pharma, Par Pharmaceutical.
Yeah. Where's Sackler? Okay. What kind of article is this? Can't even bash on the Sacklers right now. Okay. No offense. So number 4. Yeah. Number 4, the number of pills distributed skyrocketed over 7 years. No kidding. So look at the graphic.
Yep.
It's just pretty much incredible. So increasing 51% from 8.4 billion in 06 to 12 billion plus by 2012. And you can imagine
what it is, yeah.
In 2019 that we have even more problems. So let's see. By contrast, doses of morphine, well-known treatment for severe pain, averaged slightly more than 500 million a year during the same period.
Wow.
So
500 million
versus
morphine versus
8.4 and
12.6 billion of these medications. Mm-hmm. Wow. And morphine's really effective. So
it's like what, 24 times more?
Yeah.
Something
Wow.
like that?
Uh-huh.
The numbers of pills sold during the 7-year period are staggering, of course, yes, far exceeding what had been previously disclosed in limited court filings and news stories. So the release of this database was really formative and extremely important, in my estimation, so that the country, you and I, folks that work with our clients, know the depth of the destruction. The current fentanyl crisis, add that on.
Oh, yeah, the fentanyl, yeah.
67,000 deaths
in
a 4-year period.
Wow.
2013 to 2017. And number 5, some states and rural areas were saturated. Let's take a deeper look at this. Moscow Mitch McConnell may be interested to know that in his state alone, 63.3% of the folks in that country well, it is sort of a country when you go to Kentucky, isn't it? It's kind of a different area. Lots of banjos and things like that.
So funny.
I know. I'm thinking Deliverance.
It's not Deliverance.
So, and as I said
That's
before,
where they do the moonshine.
I know.
Anyway,
I know it's Deliverance.
You've had that movie on your mind all day, Gary. I don't know what's going on with you in that Deliverance movie.
Ed Beatty, wonderful actor, in his underwear. That's a traumatizing.
Yeah, the audience needs to know it's like the 4th time he's mentioned Deliverance today.
When you're a young man,
so clearly something's up with that.
Yep, Tennessee, West Virginia, Nevada had the highest opioid death rate from 06 to 012. So obviously there's a direct correlation between distribution, targeting these particular areas, which, let's be really honest, are, I guess if you're a Fox News watcher, you'd be called a low information person. These are low information.
Yeah. Well, they're rural and they're really struggling financially.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, largely white. Which is interesting because so much of when you think about historically, the stigma around drug use and the mythology of drug use is urban and inner city and, poor Mexican and Black children. And, you're looking at largely Hill people who are marginalized and struggling and in a lot of psychic pain. And one of the things about opiates is that they not only relieve your physical pain, but they do numb out your emotional and psychic pain. So it makes sense to me, actually, that there would be a big interest in or use of the medications there.
And what disgusts me, of course, excuse me, as I choke up, is the exploitation that occurs with folks that really don't have.
That's right. Don't have a lot to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here you have billionaires exploiting those with really nothing.
And in fact, you know what?
And politicians aiding and abetting it.
Yeah. And you know what I'm going to do right now?
We're switching gears.
I'm going to, because I have I'm going to segue and relate this because the next section is ethics challenge. Addiction counselors acting badly.
Yeah.
But before we talk about addiction counselors, I wanted to comment on this other article I got on the internal drug company emails showing the indifference to the opioid epidemic. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw this, but they were talking about, for example, Victor Borelli, a national account manager for Mallinckrodt, told Steve Cochran, vice president of sales for Key Source Medical, to check his inventories. And if you're low, order more. If you're okay, order more. Capiche? And Borelli joked, destroy this email. Is that really possible? Oh well. The filing by plaintiffs to pick some drug company employees is driven by profits, undeterred by the knowledge their products were wreaking havoc across the country. In fact, in 2009, Borelli told Cochrane in another email that 1,200 bottles of oxycodone, 30 milligram tablets have been shipped. Keep them coming, Cochrane responded, flying out of there. It's like people are addicted to these things or something. Oh, wait, people are. And Borelli responded, just like Doritos, keep eating. We'll make more. So apparently, on Friday night, there's a spokesman for their company sought to distance from the emails. So this is an outrageously callous email for an individual who's not been employed by the company for many years. And obviously, the people that made these comments are not commenting. But yeah, there's several. Apparently, the companies ignored red flags at Cardinal Health, one of the largest national drug distributors. Then CEO Kerry Clark wrote in an email to Cardinal senior officials that the company's results-oriented culture was perhaps leading to ill-advised or short-sighted decisions, the filing claims. In the previous 18 months, Cardinal had been hit with nearly $1 billion in fines, settlement, and lost business as a result of multiple regulatory actions, which includes suspension of licenses some of its distribution centers because they were not maintaining effective control against opioid diversion. So then McKesson Corporation's Director of Regulatory Affairs told his colleagues he was concerned about the number of accounts we have that have large gaps between the amount of oxy or hydro they're allowed to buy and the amounts they really need. So this increases the, quote, opportunity for diversion by exposing more product for introduction into the pipeline than may be used for legitimate purposes. So it's right out there. That was 2011.
Of course.
Okay, so it's right there that they very well knew what was happening.
It just, I'm not a very political person, but this is what unrestrained capitalism looks like.
It is.
This is what lack of regulation and accountability to the ruling class or corporatocracy, if you want to get really technical.
Well, look at all the book learning Gary's had today. Somebody ate their Wheaties in between Deliverance Vision.
No, it's
Deliverance viewings.
It's a repulsive corporate cretin.
It is repulsive.
Write something like that.
It is repulsive. It's very horrible.
Yeah. So ethics are involved here, is that right?
Well, I just wanted to share that because I happen to have it with me.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to turn to the ethics challenge, which is, addiction counselors acting badly. If you're an addiction counselor, you can get out your CCAP ethics codes and follow along. We do have a link on our atypicalpodbean.com. So I'm going to read this story, and we may have referred to this once before, but it's a follow-up. Former drug recovery advocate pleads guilty to charge related to fentanyl trafficking. This was the case that played a role in the cancellation of Mike Pence's visit. Remember, he's going to answer. He said, former drug recovery advocate admitted to his role distributing a celebrated member of New Hampshire Drug Recovery Center pleaded guilty to transporting fentanyl across state lines. Jerry Hatch pleaded guilty on Friday to using a phone to facilitate distribution of 1,500 grams of fentanyl, according to a plea agreement in Concord. He coordinated this from Lawrence, Massachusetts to his home, and he was part of a network of dealers that was captured in a sting operation in Manchester. He actually is a former NFL player who worked at Granite Recovery Centers, and he actually got addicted as part of a knee replacement surgery. So
does that explain his criminality?
I was going to say, but that does not explain the crossing of state lines. So apparently this played a part in last month's sudden cancellation of Vice President Mike Pence's visit to the recovery center. And when asked by the judge why he didn't want to go to trial, Hatch said state police had evidence against him, and he'd been charged with a larger crime if he went to a jury trial.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so court records paint a dark portrait.
That's when you know you're in trouble.
2017, in the early days of proliferation of fentanyl in the granted state, federal, and local law enforcement groups, there started to be a distribution. They identified the main person, who was the distribution courier, and that was him, okay? And so the police were able to arrest him, and he had been coordinating and carrying out the trips. So there we go. He faces a maximum 4-year prison sentence and a potential fine of up to $25,000. So he's going to be scheduled in November.
But the saving grace,
Yeah.
he didn't have to meet Mike Pence.
That's true. He dodged a bullet there, didn't he?
No, he dodged a piece of wood.
There it is. There it is.
Call him driftwood.
Okay.
So, gosh, I can think of so many things.
Well, you know what, the part that kills me about that is because you see this sometimes with famous, former athletes and that kind of thing, and they really do come out as role models for recovery.
Exactly.
And so it's really, in some ways, particularly awful that you've got somebody that's their role, and then they're the largest distributor of fentanyl.
Yeah, it's like, whoops, sorry.
Whoops.
What was that other guy we covered a long time ago who was the liquid gold?
Yeah. Oh, God. That was the urine guy. Yeah.
Urine guy charging $1,000.
That's the baseball guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
got to watch these athletes.
I'm telling you.
I mean, to be like a cyclist, at the elite level, they just dope. They just do it directly.
Yeah, they just affect themselves.
They don't hurt anybody. I'm sorry. Never mind. We'll get letters from the ECI now. The governing body of
cyclists.
The Union's Cyclist International. Definitely get a hold of us. So,
okay.
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to say
business and
boundaries would probably be where I would go. I'd say we got some serious boundary problems here with this guy. And, basically engaging in inappropriate social relationships, business relationships, and with patients and other people, and unlawfully administering to himself or others a controlled substance, because I suspect he was probably using his product in the possible. So I think there's several things there. Engaging in the practice of addiction counseling without, at the same time being loaded. So I think we've got several things going on there. So anyway, that's pretty bad. And again, if you're going to be a role model, for God's sake, try not to distribute. Okay, it's bad enough if you relapse, because we do have a relapsing disease.
Yeah,
but don't be a distributor.
But I know, and if you're going to be a role model, just consider the audience you want to be a role model for.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Dealer.
Who are you working for?
Yeah.
Gosh, this is crazy. So here we are, moving on. So that was an interesting article, of course, and again, some of your ethics challenges are almost as horrifying as you. Why would you take that to get high?
It's true.
I don't know where you find those. I'm gonna have to up my game. So speaking of upping the game, we're gonna try something a little different. This is an interesting article. This time we're gonna talk about prevention, but we're gonna do it in a different way. And we're gonna talk about the intersection of what I would call, how would we say, public health, substance use disorder, mental health, and criminal justice. And where this is coming from is as you know, the prevalence of guns in this country has really taken off with a lack of proper, I would say, laws in place to protect people. And so we know locally for ourselves, we've had a mass shooting in Gilroy.
Shooting in Gilroy,
We know of 2 other horrifying events in the country in the last, it's been 4 weeks now. So I believe we've had 3.
And we had 3 back to back. Yeah.
Yeah, and within about a 2-week period.
Yes, 2 weekends in a row. Yeah.
So this garners certainly all of our attention, and I think one of the things that set us both off, if I could speak for you, which is always going to be precarious.
Always dicey. Yep.
Always dicey. That's when the hate mail shows. Don't mansplain to her. Okay, I'm not. I'm just talking to her. But that didn't happen, folks. I'm joking. So this whole notion, and it's coming from our president and other higher ups, that somehow the folks that perpetrate violence on the scale that we've seen in the last month and years, frankly, somehow there's a mental health issue.
Yeah, that it's we need to do more about mental health. Yeah.
They're going to wrap it in mental health, and we're here to suggest to you that it's not mental health.
No.
In fact, it's a public health issue.
Exactly.
That's how violence and gun violence is studied in our country. Now, you may, as an educated person listening to this podcast, which I know all of you are,
All of you
know that there's prohibitions to studying gun violence.
That's right. They stopped. The government made a decision
That's
to
correct.
no longer fund any kind of gun violence research.
That's right.
Yeah.
What that means is the handshake that exists between the NRA and some of our politicians. Mitch McConnell comes to mind.
Well, one of them. Mm-hmm.
It is really taking a toll on our communities. And so we wanted to spend a minute to uncouple the notion that a person who perpetrates such heinous violence with a weapon of mass destruction is somehow mentally ill or has a substance use disorder.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's been said, and we wanted to say not so much.
Yeah, maybe not. Because one of the things that I had told Gary, well, you're sitting here, Gary, that I told you was that I was in the back of my head every time I hear this, I keep thinking to myself, white nationalism is not a DSM-5 diagnosis. Correct. It is not a mental health diagnosis.
No.
Racism is not a mental health diagnosis. Okay, so I mean So this idea that somehow let's divert this discussion onto the mental health people, right? Is scary to me because of the potential stigma it raises for mentally ill people.
And also, I just want to point out the insidious nature of the rhetoric around the idea of mental health. Apparently, if a Caucasian person commits violence at this scale, they have a mental health issue. But if you're from a different country, let's say a Middle Eastern country, and you commit some type of violence at this nature, it's already going to be attached to
now
some
it's terrorism,
ideology as
right?
terrorism.
Yeah.
We know here at the at our podcast, we know that at Atypical that this is a human issue.
Yes, it is.
That is devoid of any race, creed, color, or anything. In fact, it's really a public health issue.
Yes, it is.
So
yes,
we wanted to spend just a moment to kind of unpack this a little bit and reframe it. And so we're using something we found, a slide deck, a presentation we found that we're going to pull from. It's Safety, Not Stigma, Reframing the Way We Talk About Mental Health in America. So that's the first part. So quick test. Let's see. If someone does this, let's do it like a quiz.
Okay.
If you have a mental health issue or severe or a substance use disorder combined, are you likelier to go out and commit violence on a mass scale, or are you more likely to take your own life?
I would say more likely to take your own life.
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct.
You are absolutely right. In fact, psychological autopsies have reported higher numbers, up to 90%. So in other words, if you take your life, there's almost a 90% chance that you're suffering from mental health or substance disorder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's no correlation like that with terrorism.
That's right.
There is none. And so that's the first order. Those with substance use disorders are 6 times more likely to complete suicide than those without.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, so we're learning now.
Yeah, we all know that the risk goes way up if you're loaded.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And you're driven by intractable anxiety and depression or whatever it may be going on, and it's compounded by substance use disorder, and so you take your life, and it's a very desperate thing when that occurs. Typically, from our experience, a person suffering like that is not capable to go and take other people's lives.
Exactly.
They're not thinking that way. If you understand if you can speak more to to what that looks like from a mental health perspective, you're incapacitated when you're at this point.
Yeah, part of the despair and the thinking around that level of despair with suicidality is that in general the people you love, the world around you, would be just better off. In fact, in your mind, you're thinking to yourself, it's too painful to do this, and the people I love don't need the burden of me. So it's in some ways can be a very other-oriented thinking process, right? As opposed to, a desire to harm or a desire to punish. Not that that can't happen, but that is certainly not. That's not typical.
Yeah, the mass shooting and this correlation between mental health and substance use disorder and mass shootings, it doesn't exist. What I'm really trying to say is it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
What does exist, what we do know in our own experience in the literature is that, yes, there's definitely harm to self insofar as like a suicide. There also may be higher rate incidents of family violence.
Yep, domestic violence.
And other things of that nature. But the notion that gets externalized into the community in some gross act of violence, the data doesn't support that.
In fact, it says the same deck said if you were to suddenly cure schizophrenia, bipolar, and depression overnight, violent crime in the U.S. would fall by only 4%, and much of this relates to the co-occurring substance use, which gets back to you're more likely to complete the violence if you are under the influence. So, we're talking about the role of violent crime being a very small percentage. In one study, only 52 out of the 235 killers, about 22% even had a mental illness. Another study of shooters who killed 4 or more people since 1966 found that 14% have been diagnosed with a psychotic disorder, and that mass shootings account for only 0.1% of homicide deaths. It kind of reminds me of when you think about child abuse. You're more likely to be injured by a family member. You're more likely to be killed by a family member than you are, a stranger.
Yes.
Okay. Now the difference is the type of weapon, and we just saw that when we had the police respond. A couple weekends ago in 30 seconds, and already there have been 9 people killed because you're looking at automatic weapons. The level of destruction is so much faster. Where in domestic violence, frequently somebody has a handgun, right? So they shoot themselves, they shoot the other person. Yeah.
And these are impulsive acts.
Yeah, often they are.
So
they often are.
Most, I would suggest almost all mass violence episodes are not impulsive.
No,
acts.
you have to get your weapon.
Yes.
All the ammo, you have to have a plan.
They're well planned. I think of the Mandalay Bay situation.
Oh, yeah.
Las Vegas, where I think upwards of 50 people were killed. And it's startling to hear these numbers, and I think that's why I think we are compelled to bring this up, that associating what is, for all intents and purposes, a public health issue of the nexus between people with the means to create such harm and destruction, meaning a war-like weapon, and the ideology and the radicalization of thought and action that goes along with this pathology is not mental health.
Right.
It's not a mental health issue.
What the argument could be, and I understand where the argument comes from, because part of it is, you'd have to be mentally ill to be willing to kill that many people, right? I think that's where the thinking comes from.
Some of us would say a person needs to be mentally ill to be the leader of a world country and speak in terms that are so grotesque and activate people.
Okay, there's that. And I would say that is still not necessarily mental illness.
It's not mental illness.
Okay, because what we're looking at is idealism or ideology or a destructive belief system.
Yes.
And so, is it possible at some point we might be able to parse that out and say, well, it's a combination of, being a sociopath or something like that. But as far as we know so far, it tends to be people with a great deal of rage and a great deal of anger, but it is not a diagnostic classification as a mental illness. Okay, not at this point. And I certainly worry about what happens for people who, are going to be looked at with unnecessary paranoia and fear simply because, they have a diagnosable mental illness. So, I'm really glad you brought this up and that you wanted to talk about this today, because this has definitely been on my mind.
It's been on my mind a lot, and I'm just suggesting if you extrapolate this, what I'll call systemic racism.
Yeah.
and you be careful and listen for the language, you'll hear. It's in front of us right now. We have people who should know better trying to suggest, it's something it's not.
Yeah.
Because of the color of the skin of the people, the perpetrators.
That's right.
I mean,
That's
I'll
right.
be that blunt.
Well, and not only that, but I think it's to divert the discussion from guns.
Yes.
Because you always get back to that, well, it's not guns that kill people, right? Well, you know what? You could kill way more people with an AK-57 in a much shorter period of time.
Is it 47
Okay?
or 57?
Or is it 57? I don't know.
You have the new one?
And maybe.
No,
For God's sake. I don't know, Gary.
I don't either.
I don't know either.
I
But
think it's
the point is, it kills lots of people faster,
Yeah.
Than a handgun. Not that everybody should have one of those. Now, it's interesting that the other thing I heard today on NPR, there's, again, this renewed discussion of should we have more concealed carry? Right? This gets back
That's
to
on the teachers,
that the
yeah,
solution to this is we all just need more weapons.
That's
right?
it.
Again, there's absolutely no any
correlation.
kind of correlation, no research that would say that you're safer if somebody around you is carrying a weapon.
In Texas, in Walmart, in that particular instance, that's an open carry area.
Yes, it is. You're
And
right.
No one was stepping in to dispatch this fellow who was, creating all this death and destruction. And I would just suggest this, that since we're talking about this correlation, someone who perpetrates a mass shooting is dealing with external hatred.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the folks that are suffering the most, it's internal hatred
Oh, yeah.
of them.
Yeah, internalized shame.
And trauma and all that.
You're right.
And those are very, very different. And one is a mental health issue, the internal.
That's right.
The external, that is something completely different that we're talking about. So I want to just draw one more correlation to this. And I think we'd like to come back to this
We probably will.
and track
Yeah.
this subject.
Yeah, unfortunately, it'll probably come up
It'll
again.
probably keep going. And do we have any questions from the audii?
Yeah. We have our one audience member. Any thoughts, Angelina?
Yeah, I have a leftover question from earlier about the cheese.
We have a cheese question.
When they do the combination
Uh-huh.
of the heroin and the cough?
Tylenol? Uh-huh.
Yeah, does it turn orange? Is that why you call it cheese?
You know what?
So
I did not
so the
see in my...
question-
Okay, tell the question. The question is, why is it called cheese? Because if you add the Tylenol in with the heroin, it turns orange, which makes it cheese colored, which I think is a really marvelous question.
That's a
I did
great
not see an answer to that question in my research.
So it looks like cheddar cheese?
So yeah, it would look
Or
like...
maybe it could be white cheese?
Could be white cheese. I mean, I wonder if it has sort of a lumpy texture to it.
Mm.
Well, you know what? I would encourage our listeners to get on the internet and do some research and find out, because Angelina wants to know, why is it called cheese? Is it because it looks like cheese? And I think that is a good question.
That is a great question.
That's a great question. So thank you, Angelina,
Cool.
for participating in today's show.
Thank you, audience.
Thank you, audience, for looking up the answer to that question.
Say members, or we say
We'll get back to it.
Membi?
Members.
It's only one.
Members.
Membi.
She's
Just
there's one of her membi. Okay.
Membi.
Well, okay, let's now come to our last section as a good segue here. Humility check moment this week. And this section reminds us not to take ourselves too seriously, a key to burnout prevention and humility. Okay.
Are you, now, can I just do an inquiry?
Okay.
Are you going to talk about anything that just recently happened with your car?
No, I have another one.
You have another one?
I do.
So should I mention anything?
You can say what you want to say.
Okay, so Mary's covered in bandages on her wrist and her hand.
Yes, I am.
So I immediately, you know where I went. Gardening accident. You know exactly where I went. Because one time, piece of clothing, cords being mowed down, God knows. Who knows? But apparently that's not what happened.
No.
You had an issue with your car. And
I did. It was overheating.
It spit up on you.
And it did.
Hot liquid.
Yeah, I got a steam burn.
And you're okay, though.
Yeah, I'm okay. I've just started blistery.
So that means whatever's coming up next better be good.
Well, I'll tell you,
That was good.
It's true, but this one is actually pretty stupid, and I saved it for you because I love to save these things. Okay, so I was having a section of in front of my house torn out, a bunch of old bricks that were all cattywampus and stuff, right? And so I had the young guy next door. He was pulling them out for me because I thought it was going to be hard. And I went out there, and he was making some progress, and I got all enthusiastic, and I was about halfway getting ready for work, about half dressed. I was dressed, but I hadn't put on my makeup yet.
Oh.
So I went on out. I was so excited, and I said, "Oh!"
Because I was putting together a young guy in half dress.
Oh yeah, we're too young. Believe me, that'd be bad. Anyway, I went out there. And I got so enthusiastic that I decided to help. So I started carrying the bricks as he dislodged them and stacking them up on the driveway. And I had a good old time. So I'm out there in my dress, my work dress, look like an ass, but I don't care. And I'm stacking these things. All of a sudden it's 20 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, I got to go back in. So I go back in, and without thinking, I think, oh, I need to start putting on my makeup. So I get my foundation out, and I start putting foundation on my face while I'm tidying up the counter. And I look up to put on my mascara, and do you know what I saw? What step did I miss before putting on my foundation?
Washing your hands.
I did not wash my hands.
Look like you came out of a coal mine.
I look like a coal miner. And I thought of that movie. What is that ridiculous movie? It's my favorite movie too.
Cece Spacek?
No, it's the one. It's oh gosh, Zoolander. Zoolander, where he goes down and pretends he's a coal miner for a day, and he paints up his face. That is exactly what I look like. I was covered in soot in my face. At which point I start laughing hysterically. And I'm thinking, look at me right now. So anyway, I had to obviously clean myself off and start over again. But it was a classic Mary moment.
Yeah, that was
where I did not pay attention.
I thought you said you're going to pull your back out and you were down.
No.
You couldn't get to your phone.
Well, not that I have not done that, but
and
I'm just saying.
Button around your
help me! I fell down. I can't get up.
It didn't work. Or you forgot to replace the battery.
No, I need to have to put the battery in. But anyway, there I had my Zoolander moment, Gary, and it was pretty funny, and I just had to laugh at myself.
Mine is. I have one like really stupid one this week. And I have one from the past, so I call them bike humility moments. Oh, okay. I can do both if you want.
Sure.
So you do your laundry and you put some sheets in there, and sometimes my washer, I don't know, everyone's does this, but mine's like kind of possessed. It does this. You turn it on hot and it goes.
Oh.
And it just spits up like a little water.
Oh
That's
wow.
it.
Okay.
Until the water temperature gets high, then it'll go. And then it'll go.
Okay.
So it's doing it, but it takes a while. So I don't put the soap in there until it's like kind of getting full, because otherwise it just puts the soap in one place.
And it gets all clumpy.
It's just weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait. So sure enough, everything finishes. I go back out, and there's, of course, a nice cup full.
Oh, no.
Wash
You didn't
with no soap. So I had to redo it. And just note to self.
Okay.
And then I did the whole plump thing again. Anyway. So that's a very simple one.
Yeah, that's something we've all done.
How about something a little more, I don't know, crazy?
Okay.
So anyone that knows me knows I love bikes, and I've been on a bike since I was a kid. And I did not come from I came from humble means.
Yes, you did.
So I came from a situation where I had a used bike that was, I don't know how we procured it. Maybe we found it.
It's better that we don't know.
Maybe we found it in a landfill. I'm not sure. Very popular brand of the day called a Huffy, which was basically a piece of junk. And they were such junk, in fact, that Colorado had a very famous thing for years called a Huffy toss. And you're like, what's a Huffy toss? Well, a Huffy toss is there's a cliff and there's a person with a Huffy, and whoever could throw it the furthest off the cliff got a new Huffy.
Really?
The Huffy toss. So there's a Huffy, and it was one of those 3 on the tree, little shifter on the top tube.
Yep.
And so I thought, hey, I'm going to get some highly toxic paints, and I'm going to paint this thing like white. I want to change the color because I want it to be like a Schwinn. Okay. Because the Schwinns were cool.
Oh, yeah.
And were really expensive. So I did this. It looked pretty cool. And so I'm going down the street. You want to know what happened next?
I do.
All right. We had a neighbor. I'm in a different neighborhood. And this guy had this car. He always had the car out as his. It was like a Jaguar.
Oh.
Yeah, very, very
nice
fancy car. Yeah, very cool. So I'm riding along, and I'm checking out how really cool this white thing. And I went, bam, right into the back, onto the back of the car.
Gary.
I hit in a crumpled mess. I fall off.
Oh no.
And you're thinking, oh, am I hurt? I'm not thinking that at all. I'm thinking, oh my God, I just hit this guy's car. He's going to kill me. I'm going to be in trouble. I dented it. I put a scratch in it. I did something. Of course, everything in those days was just really hardcore metal.
Right.
It didn't hurt the thing at all.
Oh, okay.
It hurt my bike.
Oh.
Because it was a Huffy.
Oh.
But, here I am just looking down, like checking, well, that's a really cool shifter. Boom.
Oh,
Yeah,
poor
done,
Gary.
Done.
And the book wipe didn't work from then on? After all that work you put into it?
It had a little bit of a wave to it,
no.
and you ride it from
oh, dear. Kind of like your washer.
Yeah, kind of like my washer, yeah. Yeah, it didn't. The wheel was never quite true again. The front wheel. It was just kind of, but it was good enough. I could ride it. It was, and the shifter looked cool. That was good.
Set a distractor moment.
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
Yeah.
Were you hurt?
No, not that I recall.
Okay.
Some would say, yeah, you had severe head injury. If your behavior is any indication. But yeah, no.
But mercifully, you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know that, so that's
the
okay.
beauty of it.
That's right.
I don't know.
We can all speculate.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, Gary. All right. Well, you've spent another time with us, and we do appreciate it listening, and we appreciate it when you subscribe. And again, in a few weeks, we're going to be doing our live show. Looking forward to that. We'll have some. Let's see, maybe a microphone in the audience, maybe to kind of get the questions.
Get some questions.
And
hecklers.
I'm sure there'll be hecklers. And our swag came in, so we do have some raffle prizes we'll be giving away. And so,
do people know what swag is?
Swag?
Yeah.
Swag is giveaways, like tote bags and things like that with our Atypical sign on it.
Earplugs.
Yeah. Volume reduction.
Listen to the show. You can put them in. I love that show. It's the best show they ever had.
We get tickets to the show.
That's right. Well, only certain people can come in, but Angelina, let us know. We'll see if we can get Angelina in.
We'll get you on the.
We'll see if we can get you on the invite list.
List.
Okay. Thank you for joining us,
Thank you
and
so
we
much.
will talk with you soon.
Bye.
Bye.